Good day, fellow adventurers. Hey, you're looking good. Have you put on a little muscle tone? It's been a while. Glad to have you back. Come in, have a slice of pie. Welcome to Dresden's Tale, episode 55. This is season 3, volume 3, chapter 51 in our rambunctious tale. This is high military fantasy, the kind that needs heroes. Ours is Dresden Fane. He's not too fast, he's not too funny, but someday he may make me a little bit of money. He's a warrior of the Stone Clan, striding boldly through a YouTube full of cat videos and recycled content. I'm Lewis Nichols, your friend, your compadre, your guide, etc., etc. I'm the guy who wrote this thing, a crazy project spanning 2 decades and a whole cartload of Word documents. Thanks to YouTube, I now have a reasonable way to pass it on to you. If you've been with us from the beginning, what do you think? Can you tell the difference in the new season? It feels like things are coming together pretty well, despite some procrastination. If you're new, don't worry about missing out on any major plot points. We have no plot. Oh, don't run away. This is cutting-edge territory here. Come bear witness. This is a fantasy soap opera, and we are well ahead of our time. Pretty sure what viewers I have are time travelers. Got any stock tips? Don't tell me. But I do wonder if it's Mars first for Elon or the loony bin. Oh, what am I saying? We're not here for real life. We want to know about Dresden. How's the war? How's his friends? I don't know about you, but I'm dying to find out more about that little moment between Ralph and Grace. We know pterodon are sexual horn dogs, but what's the dynamic between monkey and winged reptiles? Well, there's somebody for everybody. Sometimes several someones. Sometimes at the same time. Well, let's look in and see how it's going. We're still on Vool, and time is flying. It's Ursa's 15th, 2052 years after the fall.
Tribulations 23. There is no balance in the game of life. The weak will fail, stomped by the boot of the strong.
Outside, Heliot was directly overhead. In just the distance from Fort Roth to Fort Lassiter, Keto's track was noticeably farther away. The bright red boil of light that was Heliot is now Dresden's greatest enemy on the plain. He didn't care about the Itarians. They could only kill him. If he could fly up to defeat Heliot, he would. It would still be bright on Vool, Nava, Keto, the Bishop's Line, Mephius, and then there were the Throbbing Passions, as the locals called them. Just when you thought one hellish orb was gone, another appeared. Odessa was a shadow-wrapped paradise compared to Vool. Dresden sat under a tarp planted against a formation of white-streaked black stone. To his heat-sensitive vision, it seemed a lot colder than it should have been. The faded tarp glowed in comparison. He stared at the stone wall, soaking in the coolness to relax his eyes. Nice, isn't it? A gnome intruded onto his peace. He could tell she was Campbell by her dress. Even in the heat, she was covered from ankle to neck. He didn't answer. The third occupant grunted, a dwarf with a bloody rip down the whole side of his body. He'd live, probably, but the wound was too much for the magic available. Only time would do. That scar is going to be epic. The gnome turned her attention to the recovering Tarek. Dresden grunted, responding to the question as his comrade had responded to his. He thought it would be funny. Are you in a squad? The gnome asked Dresden. Maybe the grunt was a mistake. I'm in the 4th. It's a militia based out of Fort Roth. Before the war, there were only 20 of us. We were serving the role set out by Omadon. You know, a mountain patrol. There's 200 of us now, and proper militias, too. It's nuts. I don't even know everyone. Definitely a mistake. Dresden didn't exactly intend to speak out loud. He got up to leave, and heard the other dwarf chuckle. Come on, gnome. This man needs to rest. He can't do that with your mouth running. Rude bastard. They got up and out into the light, both shielding their eyes. You oughta what? Mepios approached. Dresden, have you pissed off someone else? Gnome, I don't know who you are, but kick his ass later. We need to go. The Campbell warrior didn't push the point and withdrew. You sure know how to keep people away from you. Too bad. That little gal might have polished your mace for you. Grace says they get plumb starry-eyed over dwarves around here. I'm not. Don't care. Can you get us to Boa Ridge? The brief said we might have lost our pickets. Dresden nodded. We've been here for weeks, and all I've done is cart people around. You to mid-camp, here, relief to all the checkpoints, trips all the way back to Fort Roth. And I can tell that you love every minute of it. Mepios waved a handful of warriors over. Boa Ridge. Then we patrol into Lassiter. Dresden didn't say a word, just waited for the warriors to gather and evoked. The cool, stale air was a shock, but one he was getting used to. It was 2 jumps to Lassiter, through a rest stop he'd seen a dozen times already. He called it Midway Point to the midpoint, but no one ever thought that was funny. He promised himself once again to cut out the humor. He counted down 3, 2, 1. Ending the second leg, Dresden watched over his shoulder as a human fell on his ass as they emerged from pocket space. The man hadn't bothered standing up before re-entering. Maybe it was because he was preoccupied, or maybe Dresden shouldn't have added the seats when he customized his skiff. The first hint of battle was an excessively hairy man howling like a wolf, or maybe it was a wolf who'd learned to go bipedal. Either way, Dresden took a few steps back, fumbling for his mace. Getting situated, he left the man-beast to another fighter and engaged a minotaur with a worried look on his face. Dresden cracked the taller warrior just below the knee. He was relieved to find the blow effective and began to press. Let me tell you about Leith. He knocked his opponent's attempt at a right cross away with his shield. She was a warrior, an accomplished warrior. Dresden struck the man in the ribs, driving him to a knee. Assessing the battlefield, he decided to let the wounded man run for it. His path was down a steep grade, and he probably wouldn't survive it anyway. There were plenty more Itarians to deal with. After the fight, Mepios told him, You did okay, Warlock. A little chatty, but okay. From what I see, you make good decisions. You know, I've run into a few Warlocks, and most of them, they avoid fighting completely. Skiffing is just something I can do. Dresden looked down the hill and spotted his first victim hanging limp halfway down. In his descent, a leg had caught between 2 stones and snapped above the ankle. He still hung from a twisted limb. Crows already starting to investigate. Mace and shield guy, Itagar clacked metal on metal in approval. Dresden grunted. Mace, broadsword, axe, whatever. All right, men, Mepios told his people. Take what you want. I'm not your conscience. It took an hour's walk to find a line of wagons traveling to resupply Fort Lassiter. Most of the little troop took places where they could ride. Dresden didn't even try to get away with it. Soon he found a niche to walk along with the guards. It was a winding path into the fort, a road into hills that led past defensive towers and battlements. It could all be accessed through the high ground to reinforce key points. An invader would have to infiltrate by magic or fight uphill the whole way. Dresden tossed Liz a bag of dates and nuts, a mix of Tarikian and local favorites. Where's Ralph? Probably with the Monkey, she shrugged. I don't really know. I also don't see the attraction. I mean, I like the guy, but he's got a beak. And he eats rats. Liz laughed. Live rats, no less. Well, good for them anyway. Can you use this? He handed her a long, thin dagger. She shrugged. I'll take it. Better than mine. Their unreported looting is going to get us in trouble. I'm turning most of this over to the fort commanders. I'll do it quiet, so they don't know the rest are stealing. Yeah, but is it really stealing? Dresden looked at her and nodded. It all belongs to one chief or another. If they don't know they have it, they can't give us the right to carry it. I guess. She had no intention of fighting with him. I heard Prater was forced off of Vool. Who? The prophet everybody's talking about? The Book of Tribulations? Dresden tried to remember. He's a Minotaur? Did you know him? Liz barely resisted popping him in the head. Because we're both Minotaur? Do you know every other dwarf? I'm just wondering why you care if he was thrown off the plane. Why are we yelling? He's an important man. When did this happen? A while back, I guess. A few weeks? Dresden grunted. I think I saw him. It was Halloy's day. A bunch of city guard were beating the shit out of him. And you didn't help? I thought about it, but he was saying some stupid shit about seeing the distant future all the way to the end of time. Besides, I couldn't take on the whole Campbell clan in the middle of Fort Roth. Well, he'll probably do more good on Moldav. He's already predicted a new chief will come to the Stone Clan soon. There's nothing wrong with the chief we have. Rock! Hey, come on, see what I found. Dresden jumped at Ralph's sudden appearance. Come on! They were both glad to escape the awkward conversation, making their way through narrow paths and choke points on their way farther up the hill. Where are we going? Dresden questioned. Shh, you'll see. They made it up to the higher fort, where things were a little bit more open. A few supply points occupied a plaza where squads could drill. Campbells could draw supplies at will, but anybody else had to pay for it. They'd gotten hungry enough a week ago. Liz took a few bags of waxed turnips under contract to the militia of Biona. It could be argued she had the right to do it, but out of thousands of transactions, it wasn't likely they'd ever notice anyway. Dresden also had the option to take supplies out in the name of Nanoc, but he kept it to a minimum. You could trade your loot for a few chickens, Liz suggested. What loot? Ralph asked. Never mind. Shush. He led them into a structure right up against the stone face of a steep, rocky slope. Every building was constructed to stand against invasion, with narrow stairs leading up a hallway back into the mountain. Listen. That's how we know the right path. We build in the winter. We build when times are plentiful. Yet faith is always first. We improve ourselves to show we know the true way. And Aquirta drawled familiar words with a familiar message. There is a time for war. Now is one of them. No Itarian will stop and say, hey, nice tower. I think I'll convert. But the native peoples of Vul shall. They will see the right way. Induction without destruction builds the legions of the Dozen Lord. Fucking Tianist, Liz whispered. I don't know if he has others with him. This is so exciting. We're getting the whole group back together, Liz snorted. Good for finding Donald, but we might not necessarily want everybody, right? Right, Dresden? But Dresden had walked right into the room. He wasn't sure entirely what was going on. It was a mixed group of 20 or so Kelds. Some of them were likely proles. Most were warriors in the early stages of their career, except for two older warriors, but by their equipment, they were probably lifelong militia, wall walkers, not real veterans. Dresden, excuse me, he told the group, and rushed forward. And Liz, who else is here? Just me, dear boy. Ralph was still in the hall. Are you all in the fight? You look like it. Liz let him usher her out of the room. Yeah, mostly Dresden. He's always in the right place at the right time. But we're all in a fighting wing, led by a couple of clan veterans. They're supposed to be working on a mission. When they're not working out on each other. Ralph was leading them back out the way they had come in. You're one to talk, Liz accused the pterodon. We hardly see you. Ted stopped. Are you talking about Mepios and Skyfell? The Campbells loathe those two, so I've been steering clear in hopes of finding a team. Mepios and Skyfell, and there's supposed to be this Monkey and a... Ralph, are you fucking a Monkey? I should have known it was you. There's nothing wrong with a little messing around, Liz defended her friend. Then again, Mepios and Skyfell might have taken it too far. They got caught in one of the pools the castle gets its water from, Donald told them. Dresden grunted. We should be respectful to our hosts. Still a stick in the mud, Donald observed. Ralph squawked. You know it. It's not the Bells anyway. My hot girlfriend is one of them. She's from someplace they call Hailvron, right here on the plain. They were out on the street, moving back down to their holdout. He's getting better, you know, Liz told Donald. I caught him looking at a girl just the other day. I was not, Dresden grunted. Do we need to get your stuff before we're all the way down to the tower? It was the Manelian girl, with boobs, Liz reminded him. Dresden half growled, half choked. Oh, her. I wasn't trying anything. Just tornado plan. Nothing gonna happen there. The point is, you're looking again. The small group ended up at the lower end of the castle infrastructure. It consisted of a small square where some priests of Sampha had a way to bring in goats for sale. On the other side, a squad of warriors with a trained cook would roast one for a portion of the meat. As they finished eating, a team appeared out of the astral. Another raid. That could have been us, Liz complained. Ralph stood up and burped. Then let's go make some friends, he insisted. Come on, Donald. As our team's chief diplomats, it's our job to get us a mission. I thought we were with Meepios and Skyfell, he mumbled as Ralph led the way back up the hill. Clouds of blowing dust rolled over the military camp, the light of Vool's suns making the scene look utterly unreal. Static charges snapped across the false clouds, the light refracting in a rainbow of color as webs of lightning convulsed. Sometimes the wind would die unexpectedly, and sand would fall from the sky like dirt thrown from a shovel. It was just one of the weather-like events Dresden was trying to get used to. The dust storms were his favorite, as they could interfere with the unending light. On the other end of the spectrum were the throbbing passions. He'd experienced the phenomenon twice since coming to the plane. They gave a few seconds' warning, usually with a strange pulse of light. Depending on the current conditions, those first signs might be a relief, as they were an entirely different tone than the hated light from Keto and Helliot. The first time, it drew Dresden's attention, fully lulling him into the ambush. When the strobes cut loose, he felt like eternal light stones had been shoved into his eye sockets. He equated the intensity with being beaten in the head with a hammer while getting trampled by 1,000 cattle. Twice. The second time, he was more prepared, shoving his head backwards into a leather helmet. He was astounded to find out the nature of the light was so brutal as even through quarter-inch hard leather he was still blinded by bleach-bright impressions of his surroundings. The next time, he thought he might just pocket space away at the sign of the first strobe. Hey there, come on, get up, take a closer look. They won't hurt you unless you deserve it. Dresden spotted the excited showman in front of a line of hyena-faced beasts on leashes. The Aliki are a gift from the gods. Violent, dangerous creatures, they feed on the flesh of heretics. Don't worry, if you're a good Keld, you wouldn't do for their appetites. Dresden drifted closer to get a good look. The creatures were the size of ponies, with yellowish-white fur striped with an ugly red. Their thick hips allowed them to stand upright for short periods, giving the big ones a reach of nearly 20 feet. Their front paws confirmed it. They walked on their knuckles, long, sharp claws curving underneath. "Rot! They come from eggs, don't they?" Ralph the mouse biter was back, stepping closer, coming to within 5 feet. Liz proved she was braver and stepped within 4. Dresden moved up and extended a hand like he might to a hound dog. "Don't crowd 'em!" Dresden backed away, to the keeper's delight. As soon as he could talk without belly laughing again, he answered the pterodon. Yeah, they are all born out of eggs. They've just got to eat once and they're pregnant. When it dies, you harvest the eggs. You remember that. If an Aliki dies near you on the field, get that fucking egg. Some of them are more powerful than others? Dresden asked. Yes, lad, the keeper was dressed as Campbells do. All the clans had taken a portion of the first eggs, managing them as part of their overall armies. The eggs must be returned to the Northlands, where they are planted. Soon enough they hatch, and about 1 out of 20 are more powerful than their mothers were. Dresden fought the urge to back away again when his specimen turned to study him. The hunchbacked, vaguely dog-like beast sniffed him. Easy, boy, the keeper whispered. They're smart? Someone from the little crowd asked. Ha ha ha! Laughing again, the Campbell answered. Smart like a troll. They are fucking artists in battle. They'll kick you, claw you, bash you with a rock, jump on you, bite you, eat your guts out while you're still dying. But you won't catch one doing any light reading. Dresden gave a yawn, partially for show, and partially because he was really tired. He left his space for the next warrior to test his nerve. It was hard to know when it was time to sleep. After nearly a month, Dresden didn't think he'd ever get used to living on Vool. Of course, he couldn't know how long he'd be on the plane. The Iterians might withdraw after a month, or never. Nanok might recall him at any time. It would happen eventually, especially if he was costing the house too much. Calling it a day, he lay on his cot, just a little light coming in through a high window from the lowest point of their tower. His mind raced about everything from the Aliki to Leith. He didn't think he'd have any trouble falling asleep, though. It had been a four-skiff day, the most he could do, and after that, the tension never really left him without a good night's sleep. Dresden? He looked up to see what Liz wanted. She looked nervous. What is it? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to say, I usually only pursue stronger warriors. I guess you already know that. Anyway, I just wanted you to know something else. You're pretty brave and you're a good leader. So if you want to go for a roll, I think it would be all right. It's just for the trail. That's it. Dresden let out a sort of choking noise. I'm not trying to freak you out. I just wanted to be honest. Karen would have had you in a second, and all she ever did was tease and flirt. I'm more direct than that. I don't think Karen... That's between you two. I'm here for me. Just think about it. I'm not suggesting a timetable, but unless you suddenly turn soft, it's an open invitation. Woo! Woo! Dresden and the ladies. Do you think he'll ever take her up on the offer? Minotaur or not, she's one of the prettiest ladies he knows. And how does that work? You guys know this story exists inside game rules. If she has a character sheet, and I'm not saying she does or she doesn't, but if she did, there would be a spot that said Beauty, 29. I won't go into the scale right now, but 30 is her racial max. But does that mean non-Minotaur thinks so? I don't have a chart. Well, not as I'm recording this, but you never know. Anyway, think about Earth. Every culture has their likes and dislikes. Different folks, different strokes. I think in any game system, you have to include cultural mods for beauty. Kelds as a whole favor strength. Scars are sexy. So is a few years of brave service to clan and faith. In our world, actors and such are the celebrities. In Dresden's, it's the heroes of the clan. I'm not saying Dresden is there yet, but Liz knows him better than anybody. Of course, that doesn't explain anything about Ralph and Grace, but maybe it turns out they're just into the same kind of kinky. And now it's time to go. Like, subscribe, share. Like, subscribe, share. And for fuck's sake, leave a comment. You are my Keto and my Helliot, bringing light into my darkness. Visit my fiction on Amazon for Kindle. Leave a review. Most importantly, please remember to have a great day, and I'll see you next time.